Hi there, this is Lenore Flower with CAF to Code, and today I'm here to walk you through when you should use a Power BI paginated report instead of a standard Power BI report. Quick clarification before we get started. Throughout this series, we're going to be talking about two different kinds of Power BI reports that both fall under the Power BI service. Anytime I'm talking about a standard Power BI report, I'm referring to the kind of report that you build in Power BI Desktop. Anytime I refer to a paginated report, I'm talking about the kind of reports that you build in Power BI Report Builder. We'll be going into more detail shortly on both, but I wanted to start by making that standard v paginated distinction clear. Now, I'm a big fan of Power BI reports, but I've learned the hard way that the standard Power BI report can't be the solution to every problem. Take the report on the screen right now. This is based on a report I built years ago to help a few dozen different departments be able to access their data by quarter. I built it with the assumption that everyone would just use it through their web browsers or maybe their phones, so I wasn't prepared for a last-minute request for it to be included as a printout for an annual meeting. Some departments of those several dozen were small enough to fit on one page, and others were not, which is a really big problem if you're working with a standard Power BI report and you need it to print quickly. You see, standard Power BI reports, they will print, but they're only going to give you a snapshot of what you currently have visible, which means those scroll bars are just going to show up in your printout as scroll bars and not include any of the extra information that's missing. And any of the slicers that you've included on the reporting pane are going to stay put in the printout. I figured this out maybe 8 hours before I needed dozens of reports printed out, one for each department, and it wasn't a good night. Let's look at an alternative for this report. This is a paginated version of the same report with the same fields in use. Right now, I don't have it set to the print layout. I just want to show you, scrolling up and down, that the column headers and the rows move with the data. So if you're just looking at it online, you can have a really nice user experience being able to look at the data here. If we switch to print layout, we have this nice letter landscape structure designed so that both the rows and the columns will show up on every page, as well as the title. And we can just nicely click through and see that all of them are showing up exactly the way that we'd like. Let's talk a little bit about how these two tools are different. First, why can't a standard Power BI report just let you print things off the way that we just saw? The short answer is that standard Power BI reports are optimized to fit a variety of different screens and situations. So if you've changed filters and the interactive components, you know that the information on your Power BI desktop report is going to be shifting and adjusting, right? In the same way, Power BI standard reports need to fit everything from an iPhone to a large conference room display. That requires the reports to basically work like spandex to expand and contract. And that flexibility requires things like scroll bars to shrink and stretch. In comparison, paginated Power BI reports have a deliberately rigid structure that is optimized to ensure that those reports can be printed or exported in a specific format. Some other things you should keep in mind when you're choosing between the two of these is anytime in meetings that you're talking about a tool that's going to help users explore the data, analyze, interact with data, or use other options like what-if parameters and AI insights, that's a really clear sign that you want a standard Power BI report. In contrast, if you want a report that prints off perfectly and is deliberately constrained to limit end-user changes, you are talking about a paginated report instead. Another way to think about it is standard Power BI reports help end users explore and answer why a key metric is the way it is, and delve deeper into it. Whereas paginated Power BI reports are good at displaying and showing the report user what. I like to think of Power BI paginated reports as Power BI's older, less flashy sister. If you watch The Good Place, you can think of Power BI standard reports as Good Janet. She's friendly, the list of things she can do seems endless, and she can even offer really useful insights and suggestions. Paginated reports are more like Neutral Janet from the accounting department. She's not very friendly, she doesn't have any magic tricks, but she's often what you need to get the job done. So let's talk about different components of standard v paginated reports. When it comes to the report building tool, we've already established that standard Power BI reports are going to use Power BI Desktop, where paginated Power BI reports are going to use Power BI Report Builder. When you build in Power BI Desktop, you'll generate a PBIX file. This PBIX file will include everything that you worked through in Power Query, the data model, and the reporting pane. Whereas the report definition language, the RDL file that's generated for Power BI Report Builder, is more like a recipe. It defines the data source connection and the report structure, and then at report generation time, it puts those raw data pieces together to give you the end result. When it comes to connecting to data, you have hundreds of options when it comes to standard Power BI reports and Power BI Desktop. Paginated reports in comparison are much more limited, but there's a nice trick to this. You can use Power BI dataset as your data source in a paginated Power BI report and get all of the yummy connections and details via the Power BI dataset. With Power BI Desktop, you can take advantage of many options for transforming data in Power Query using M-code, but paginated reports have a much simpler list. You'll use SQL, MDX, or DAX, but once again, using a Power BI dataset as your paginated reports data source is a handy option for being able to take advantage of Power Query's might, even when you're building a paginated report. Reports in Power BI Desktop take advantage of data modeling, measures in DAX, and relationships. If you're importing your data, it's also storing a significant amount of data within that file. Paginated reports don't have that data modeling capacity, but if you're picking up on the pattern, you may already realize that paginated reports can take advantage of everything that's built out in a Power BI dataset in that data model, using the report as its data source. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We've covered what's different between a standard Power BI report, so what's the same? First, both kinds of reports are available in Power BI Pro, a huge improvement from the time when only Power BI Premium licenses had access. Both kinds of reports can be stored in the Power BI service, meaning they can live in harmony with each other in workspaces and apps. They can both, of course, use visuals such as graphs and tables. If you haven't already figured this out, you can use Power BI datasets as your data source for both kinds of reports, and you can leverage row-level security for both. Think about paginated reports as a companion to Power BI standard reports, not a replacement. You want to use them when you need consistent report structure rather than interactivity, when the report needs to be pixel perfect as a printout or PDF, when you need to generate any kind of operational report like invoices, purchase orders, shipping labels, really anything that requires a high degree of precision and formatting. I hope I've convinced you that paginated reports are useful and worthy of your love, but if I haven't, keep watching. I may be able to convince you yet. I hope you found this helpful. Please stick around for part 2, where we'll walk you through how to use a Power BI dataset as your data source for a paginated report.